Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're diving deep into a truly fascinating and incredibly complex situation at the heart of Israel's governance, especially, amidst ongoing conflict.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
You've sent us this stack of sources, mainly commentary, interviews from politicians, public figures, and they offer some really sharp perspectives on the Attorney General's role and, well, the whole decision-making environment.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out the key insights from these pretty strong viewpoints. We want to help you understand the power dynamics, the friction, and what it all actually means on the ground.
Right. We'll look at who's saying what, maybe why they're saying it, and crucially, how it affects the country's ability to function right now. It's pretty critical stuff.
So let's start with the central figure in so much of this, the Attorney General, Gali Baharav-Miara. Traditionally, the AG is supposed to be the government's chief legal advisor, right?
That's the textbook role, yes. But the material you provided, well, it paints a very different picture. There's this strong narrative coming through suggesting a kind of perceived overreach.
Overreach is putting it mildly in some cases. Many voices in the commentary flat out accuse her of stepping way beyond that advisory role, acting more like an opposition force against the elected government.
It's quite striking, isn't it, how consistent that theme is. One MK, member of Knesset, explicitly calls her a full-blown politician with her own agenda.
Yeah, and even likens her to an elephant in a china shop. That's quite an image.
It is. And another politician, this was in the commentary you shared, went even further, described her actions as mafia-like. Pretty intense language.
Wow, mafia-like. So when the government's own legal advisor is seen this way by, significant figures within that government, what does that actually mean for governing? It sounds like it goes way beyond just legal disagreement.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just friction. It fundamentally challenges how things are supposed to work, the separation of powers. It can lead to real governmental paralysis, especially now in crisis times.
Makes sense. If the person meant to guide legality is seen as actively blocking policy, well, trust breaks down, doesn't it? Makes deciding anything incredibly hard.
Exactly. And it's not just rhetoric either. The sources are packed with specific examples of what they see as interference.
Right. Like the ultra-Orthodox draft law issue. The AG declared the defense system must draft them.
And critics, the ones in the commentary, jumped on that, called it arbitrary, a social earthquake.
And they contrasted it, didn't they, with what they saw as maybe reluctance from the courts on the reasonableness clause issue in other cases?
Precisely. So you see this tension where a legal opinion, whatever its basis, gets viewed through a very political lens, especially when set against other legal stances or past judicial action.
And this tension, it's not just theoretical. It spills over into actual accusations about blocks, right? Like key government appointments.
Yes, that's a major thread. The examples are quite pointed.
Like the head of the Israel Prison Service. I remember one source calling the AG deranged for prosecuting him, given the context of managing thousands of terrorists. Yeah. That's incredibly strong language.
It really shows the depth of the frustration there.
Yeah.
And we also see it with the Shin Bet chief. That's the Internal Security Agency. There was that controversial initial appointment, later withdrawn.
And some sources hinted the withdrawal was maybe a strategic move by the PM, sort of reacting to the stance.
That's the suggestion in some of the commentary, yeah. And there's another one, her canceling a minister's appointment for an interim chair at the Second Authority. The claim being she didn't actually have the authority to do that.
So appointments are one thing, but the criticism goes broader into policy, too. The material mentions media regulation and UNRWA.
On media, sources criticize her for opposing measures to stop some foreign media broadcasting during wartime. The argument from critics was about national security concerns.
Okay. And UNRWA. That's the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees.
Right. And here, a letter from, I think it was 16 MKs, accuses the AG of dragging her feet on enforcing laws against UNRWA.
Meaning what? Their bank accounts stayed open, offices running?
That's the claim. That delays allowed accounts to stay open, offices partly operational, even after Israel took a strong diplomatic stance against UNRWA, which, cost them internationally. So a perceived gap between policy and enforcement.
Okay, now here's where it gets, I think, really fast. This Nifsarut business, declaring the prime minister incapacitated.
Yes. That's a huge deal politically and legally.
And the sources you sent have these strong accusations, basically saying the AG was actively working towards declaring the PM incapacitated. What about those details from her diary, discussing it even after the Supreme Court had already rejected petitions?
That's an explosive claim, isn't it? Just the fact that discussion was happening, especially after the court's decision, it underlines the sheer political weight of such a move.
And as the sources point out, Nifsarut is usually for clear medical reasons, right? They mention Ariel Sharon's case.
Exactly. typically objective medical incapacity. So discussing it in this context fuels that perception of it being a political power play rather than strictly legal or medical. There was also that group, Democracy Watch, explicitly demanding she declare the PM incapacitated.
But wait, for balance, didn't one source say the AG herself stated there was no reason to declare him incapacitated? Kind of questioning why she'd state the obvious if there wasn't something going on.
Correct. That point is made too. But the accusation that she was actively exploring it or working towards it, that still hangs heavy in the commentary you gathered.
Right. And it connects to other allegations too, doesn't it? Like ordering investigations.
Yes, allegations that she ordered a probe into the prime minister himself and targeted officials close to him and the security minister.
Which some commentators saw as, well, politically motivated, that mafia-like message again.
That's how some interpreted it, yes. Adding fuel to this narrative of an adversarial relationship, not an advisory one.
So with all this swirling around, it's hardly surprising there are calls for her dismissal. The sources mention protests.
Yeah, protesters outside her home, demands like she needs to go here, now, immediately. Even calls to stop her salary, stop cooperating with her office. Real pressure.
And the Minister of Justice reportedly preparing a harsh warning.
That's what we read, citing things like selective enforcement, systematic opposition to government decision. It really throws up that fundamental question, doesn't it?
Which is?
Well, in a democracy, if the elected government loses confidence in a top civil servant, even one with judicial function, can they be dismissed? It's a huge challenge to the balance of power. Where does accountability lie?
Beyond just dismissing her, though, there's another idea floated a lot in the material: splitting the AG's role.
Right, this comes up frequently. The argument is that combining the job of legal advisor to the government with chief prosecutor against citizens and the government's defender in court, it's just too much power in one office.
Creates conflicts of interest.
Inherent conflicts, yeah. That's the argument. And what's really interesting is who supports this split. Who? Even Gideon Saar, the former justice minister who actually appointed this AG, he supports splitting the role.
Oh, wow.
He suggests it might be more legally doable than just firing her. It suggests this isn't just about the current person. Maybe it's a structural problem needing reform.
That makes sense. And this whole situation seems to feed into a broader critique mentioned in the sources, this idea of the judicial system itself kind of taking over.
Yeah, that sentiment is definitely there. Some sources use really strong terms like judicial junta, claiming the courts and legal officials are effectively governing, not the elected officials.
What are the complaints exactly? Judges appointed for life by their peers.
Those points are raised. And a perceived lack of accountability for legal officials, seeing them as a kind of bureaucratic opposition.
So it raises big questions about checks and balances, doesn't it? If people feel the courts are running things, how does the public's will through elections actually get implemented?
It's a core democratic tension amplified by the current crisis. And remember, all these internal struggles, they're happening against the backdrop of the war.
Which just raises the stakes even higher. The commentary emphasizes the PM's commitment to Rafah, right? Seeing it as vital for victory.
Absolute commitment is the phrase used. Essential for total victory and getting hostages back, whether through a deal or military action. That's the perspective shared.
But there are worries, too, that Hamas is just stalling.
Definitely concerns about Hamas playing for time and calls for a much tougher approach, an iron fist, alongside efforts for a comprehensive hostage deal. One source even dismissed current Gaza ops as just cosmetic.
So huge pressure on the government to act decisively while juggling all these internal legal and political battles. It's a tough spot.
Immensely tough. And add to that the controversy over humanitarian aid.
Ah, yes. The criticism that it's ending up with Hamas, not civilians or hostages.
Exactly. Leading to calls for the IDF, the military, to manage aid distribution directly, to stop it empowering the enemy. That's a huge operational and ethical challenge right there.
And while Gaza and the AG dominate headlines, there's the northern front, too, Hezbollah.
Can't forget that. The reports you shared note that even with damage done to Hezbollah, there's this need for ongoing military control north of the Litani River to stop them rearming.
But there's a problem with managing the situation for Israelis evacuated from the north, isn't there?
A critical point, yeah. It really stands out. Apparently, there's no dedicated body managing the northern evacuees, unlike the one set up for the south.
Leaving thousands of people in limbo. About returning home, about their daily lives.
Severe uncertainty, yes. It points to a real governance gap, even in managing the direct consequences of the conflict for citizens.
And beyond the big military and legal issues, the sources touch on other internal problems that seem to erode conflict, like MKs feeling shut out.
Right. Members of Knesset expressing frustration. They feel excluded from key war decisions, which seem confined to a small war cabinet. It affects their ability to do their job, inform the public. Feeling moderated, as one put it.
And then there are these other almost symbolic but still potent issues, like a Hamas leader's tomb on state land.
Startling, isn't it? Serving as a pilgrimage site for terror supporters, it becomes a tangible symbol of, perhaps, a lack of full control or enforcement.
And even everyday things like political billboards on Highway 6, a toll road paid for by the public, apparently without proper enforcement despite complaints.
Yeah, these seemingly smaller things, they add up. They contribute to a feeling that maybe the government isn't fully managing things, even basic stuff.
Plus, ongoing efforts against organized crime, like protection rackets, new laws being brought in.
Aimed at financial and criminal penalties. So you see this picture emerging, a nation fighting externally on multiple fronts, while also grappling with these deep internal governance challenges, legal battles, and even organized crime. Each impacts the other.
Wow. Okay, we've really unpacked a dense, interconnected set of issues here. These deep power struggles within the government, the judiciary, all playing out under the shadow of war.
I think what really stands out when you look at all this commentary together is that incredible tension, the desire, the need for decisive action versus the complex legal and political realities and constraint.
Yeah. Whether it's the AG's role, those critical war decisions, or just the everyday challenges citizens face. It's clear there are multiple powerful forces pulling in different directions, each with its own perspective on the right way forward.
Absolutely. And connecting to the bigger picture, maybe the question for you, the listener, to think about is this. In a democracy under such extreme stress, how does a nation balance the will of its elected leaders with the interpretations of its legal guardian? And what are the long-term consequences of these internal fights for the country's resilience, its security, its very fabric?